The gunshot echoed across the Montana prairie as Willow Edwards ducked behind a barrel, her heart pounding and her hand instinctively covering the small swell of her stomach. It was 1876, and this was supposed to have been a simple supply run to the growing settlement of Clearwater, not a fight for her life. "Get inside," shouted Sheriff Mills as another volley of bullets splintered the wooden awning above her head. "They're trying to rob the bank." Willow scrambled to her feet, 5 months of pregnancy making her movements awkward as she rushed toward the nearest building, the town's newly constructed hotel. The midday sun beat down mercilessly as she pushed through the swinging doors, finding herself in the relative safety of the lobby. Other townspeople had sought refuge there too, faces pale with fear as the gunfight continued outside. "Everyone stay down," ordered a tall man with a weathered face and steady hands. He wore a brown leather vest over a simple cotton shirt, and though he wasn't wearing a badge, he carried himself with the confidence of someone accustomed to danger. His eyes, striking blue against his sun-bronzed skin, caught Willow's for just a moment before he turned back to peer cautiously through the window. "They've got the bank surrounded," he muttered, more to himself than anyone else. Willow leaned against the reception desk, trying to catch her breath. She'd only arrived in Clearwater 3 weeks ago, hoping to make a new start after her husband's death. James had been gone 6 months now, killed in a mining accident that had left her alone and expecting their first child. With nowhere else to go, she'd used the last of their savings to travel west, answering an advertisement for a schoolteacher in this fledgling town. The shooting outside grew more intense, and suddenly, there was shouting about fire. Willow could smell smoke before she could see it, acrid and threatening. "They've set fire to the general store," someone cried. The tall stranger turned to the gathered crowd. "This building's connected to the store. We need to evacuate now. Everyone out the back door." Panic spread through the lobby as people rushed toward the rear exit. Willow moved with them, but a sudden sharp pain in her abdomen made her gasp and stumble. She steadied herself against the wall, waiting for it to pass. "Madam, are you all right?" The man with blue eyes was at her side, his expression concerned. "Yes, I'm fine," she insisted, straightening. "Just a twinge." He didn't look convinced, but there wasn't time to argue. "I'm Travis Blackett. Let me help you outside." "Willow Edwards," she replied automatically, taking his offered arm. "I'm the new schoolteacher." As they moved toward the back, an ominous cracking sound came from above. Travis looked up sharply. "The fire's spreading faster than I thought," he said, his voice tight. "Everyone move quickly." They had almost reached the door when the ceiling at the front of the hotel collapsed in a shower of burning debris, blocking the main entrance completely. Smoke immediately began filling the room. "This way," Travis called out, guiding Willow and the remaining guests toward the back. But as they reached the rear door, more gunshots rang out. Travis pulled Willow back just as a bullet splintered the doorframe. "Damn it," he muttered. "They're in the alley too." The smoke was growing thicker, making it difficult to breathe. Willow covered her mouth with her handkerchief, fighting against the panic rising in her chest. The baby gave a strong kick, as if sensing her fear. "Is there another way out?" she asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Travis scanned the room, his expression grim. "Second floor has a balcony on the side of the building. If we can get up there, we might be able to reach the livery stable roof next door." The stairs creaked ominously as they climbed, flames already licking at the banisters. Willow's lungs burned with each breath, and she could feel sweat trickling down her back beneath her cotton dress. The other guests had scattered, either finding their way out through windows or searching for other escapes. When they reached the top, Travis kicked open the door to a room on the far side. They rushed to the window, only to find that flames were already engulfing the stable roof. "We're trapped," Willow whispered, unable to keep the fear from her voice. Travis looked around the room, his jaw set in determination. "Not yet, we're not." He moved to the bed, stripping off the sheets and blankets. "We can use these to lower ourselves down at the back," he explained, quickly knotting the fabrics together. "It's still dangerous, but better than burning." The floor beneath them gave an ominous groan, and part of the ceiling collapsed in the hallway outside, sending a wave of heat and smoke into the room. Willow's eyes stung, tears streaming down her face as she struggled to breathe. Travis threw open the window, letting in a blast of fresh air that momentarily cleared their lungs. But what they saw outside made Willow's heart sink. The entire back of the building was now engulfed in flames, cutting off that escape route as well. "Travis," she said, her voice barely audible over the roar of the fire, "I don't think we're going to make it out of here." For a moment, his face showed a flash of the same fear she felt. Then his expression hardened into resolve. He looked at her swollen belly, then back at her face. "Listen to me," he said, taking her hands in his. "I've spent 15 years riding with cattle drives, scouting for the army, and surviving more scrapes than I can count. I didn't make it through all that just to die in some hotel fire. And I'm not about to let a schoolteacher and her baby die either." He glanced around the room once more, eyes focusing on a small trapdoor in the ceiling, likely access to the hotel's water tank on the roof. "There," he said, pointing. "That's our way out." "But the flames will move quickly," he said. "Trust me." Travis dragged a chair beneath the trapdoor and climbed up, pushing it open. A rush of hot air poured down, but no flames. He hoisted himself up, then reached back down. "Give me your hand," he called. The floor groaned again beneath her feet as Willow stretched up, taking his hand. The pain in her abdomen returned, sharper this time, making her gasp. "I've got you," Travis said, his grip firm as he pulled her up through the opening. The flat roof of the hotel was scorching hot beneath her feet, and smoke billowed up from the edges where flames were consuming the building. They weren't out of danger yet. "The next building is too far to jump," Travis said, surveying their options. "But there's a water barrel on the corner. If we can get to it, we might be able to protect ourselves enough to reach that ladder." Willow followed his gaze to a rusty fire ladder on the far side of the roof. It looked ancient and unstable, but it was their only chance. They moved carefully across the roof, the wood beneath them growing hotter with each step. When they reached the water barrel, Travis soaked his bandana and handed it to Willow. "Keep this over your face," he instructed, wetting his own neckerchief as well. As they approached the ladder, part of the roof near their feet gave way, revealing the inferno below. Willow stumbled back, a cry of fear escaping her lips as flames shot up through the opening. They were now surrounded on 3 sides by fire, the only escape being the questionable ladder ahead. Willow looked at Travis, seeing her own terror reflected in his eyes before he masked it with determination. He took her hand, squeezing it reassuringly. "We're walking out together," he whispered fiercely. "Both of you and me, I promise." Willow nodded, gathering what courage she had left. "Together." Travis went first, testing each rung of the ladder before motioning for her to follow. The metal was hot to the touch, but not unbearable. They descended slowly, the sounds of the fire and distant gunshots creating a hellish backdrop. When they reached the ground, they found themselves in a narrow alley behind the row of buildings. The air was clearer here, though smoke still swirled around them. Willow doubled over, coughing violently, the pain in her abdomen returning with frightening intensity. "Willow." Travis's voice was urgent. "What's wrong, the baby?" she gasped. "Something's not right." Travis's face paled, but his voice remained steady. "We need to get you somewhere safe. The doctor's office is on the other side of town." He peered around the corner of the alley, assessing the situation. The gunfight seemed to have moved to the north end of the main street, away from their position. "The outlaws are still engaged with the sheriff and his deputies," Travis said. "If we stay low and move along the backs of the buildings, we might make it to Doc Wilson's place unnoticed." They moved slowly, Travis supporting most of Willow's weight. Each step was agony for her, the pain coming in waves that left her breathless. By the time they reached the doctor's office, her dress was soaked with sweat, and she was fighting to remain conscious. The building was dark and empty, the doctor likely having gone to help with casualties from the gunfight. "Lie down here," Travis said, helping Willow onto the examination table. "I'll find what we need." He moved around the office with surprising efficiency, gathering clean cloths, water, and medical supplies. "You know what you're doing?" Willow asked through gritted teeth. "I helped deliver calves on my father's ranch," he replied, "and I've picked up a few things over the years. It's not ideal, but we don't have much choice right now." Another pain tore through Willow's body, more intense than before. "It's too early," she whispered. "The baby isn't due for another 4 months." Travis's expression was grave as he examined her. "I think the stress and the smoke have brought on labor. We need to try to stop it." For the next hour, he worked tirelessly, using techniques he'd seen frontier doctors employ to halt premature labor. He kept Willow calm with stories of his travels across the Western Territories, of beautiful landscapes and strange encounters, of quiet nights under star-filled skies. Gradually, the pains began to subside, though Willow remained weak and exhausted. Outside, the sounds of gunfire had stopped, replaced by the shouts of men fighting the fire that had now consumed several buildings. "You saved my life," Willow said quietly, watching Travis as he cleaned up the medical supplies. "And my babies." He shook his head. "You're stronger than you look, Mrs. Edwards. I just helped a little." "Willow," she corrected him. "And I'm not Mrs. Edwards anymore. My husband died last winter." Something flickered in Travis's eyes, sympathy perhaps, or understanding. "I'm sorry to hear that. It's not easy being alone out here, especially in your condition." Before she could respond, the door to the office burst open. Sheriff Mills stood there, his face streaked with soot, a bloody bandage wrapped around his arm. "Thank God," he said when he saw them. "We've been searching the burned buildings for survivors. The outlaws have been dealt with 3 dead, 2 captured." "And the town?" Travis asked. "Half the main street's gone," the sheriff replied grimly. "Hotel, general store, and the bank are mostly ashes. We saved what we could." Willow closed her eyes, despair washing over her. The school building had been next to the general store. Her new beginning, her livelihood, was likely gone. As if reading her thoughts, Travis spoke up. "Sheriff, Mrs. Edwards here is the new school teacher. She's going to need somewhere to stay." Sheriff Mills nodded. "The church wasn't damaged. We're setting up cots there for those who lost their homes. As for the school," he shrugged helplessly, "that'll have to wait until we rebuild." After the sheriff left, promising to send help to move Willow to the church, Travis sat beside her bed. "What will you do now?" he asked. Willow placed a hand on her stomach, feeling the reassuring movement of her child. "I don't know. I have very little money left, and without the teaching position." "I have a small ranch about 10 miles west of here," Travis said, his words careful, measured. "It's nothing fancy, just a cabin and some grazing land for my horses. But there's a spare room, and I could use some help with the books and correspondence. My reading's not what it should be." Willow studied his face, this man who had risked his life to save hers just hours ago. A stranger, yet somehow not. "Why would you do that for someone you barely know?" Travis's gaze dropped to his calloused hands. Because 15 years ago, my sister was in a situation similar to yours. Pregnant, alone, nowhere to go. A family took her in, gave her shelter until she got back on her feet. He looked up, meeting her eyes again. I couldn't help her then, I was just a kid myself. But I can help you now, if you'll let me. 3 days later, Willow found herself in the back of Travis's wagon, heading west away from the remains of Clearwater. The doctor had insisted she rest before traveling, and Travis had spent the time gathering supplies and helping with the initial cleanup of the town. The ranch, when they reached it, was indeed modest, a sturdy log cabin with a covered porch, a small barn, and a corral where several fine-looking horses grazed. The land around it was a mixture of grassland and scattered pines, with mountains rising in the distance. "It's beautiful," Willow said as Travis helped her down from the wagon. "It's peaceful," he replied. "That's why I chose it." Life at the ranch quickly fell into a rhythm. Travis spent his mornings with the horses he bred and trained them for ranch work and cavalry mounts, while Willow kept the cabin and helped with the accounts. In the afternoons, they often worked together, Travis teaching her about ranch life while she helped improve his reading and writing. The baby continued to grow, and with proper rest and nourishment, Willow's health improved dramatically. Doc Wilson rode out twice to check on her, pronouncing both mother and child to be doing well. As the weeks passed, Willow began to learn Travis's story. He had left home at 16 after his father remarried following his mother's death. He'd worked as a cowhand, scout, and occasionally as a deputy when towns needed extra help. The ranch had come from winning a high-stakes poker game 5 years ago, the only time, he claimed, that gambling had ever done him any good. "What made you stop wandering?" Willow asked one evening as they sat on the porch, watching the sunset paint the mountains gold and pink. Travis was silent for a moment, his fingers absently stroking the ears of the old cattle dog that had adopted them. "Guess I just got tired," he finally said. "Tired of never having a place that was mine, of always being the stranger passing through." He glanced at her, his blue eyes reflecting the fading light. "What about you? What brought you all the way out here from Pennsylvania?" Willow looked out across the land that was becoming familiar to her. "After James died, there was nothing left for me back east. His family blamed me for his decision to work in the mines and my own family." She sighed. "Let's just say they didn't approve of my marriage in the first place. When I found out about the baby, I knew I needed to make a fresh start somewhere." The advertisement for a teacher in Clearwater seemed like providence. "And now," Travis asked quietly, "do you regret coming west?" Willow placed a hand on her now prominent belly, feeling the strong kicks of her child. "No," she said, surprised to find it was true. "I don't regret it at all." Their conversation was interrupted by the arrival of a rider, Sheriff Mills, bringing news from town and mail that had come for Travis. "Rebuilding's coming along," the sheriff reported as he accepted a cup of coffee. "The new bank's almost finished, and they've started on the hotel and school. Town council's hoping you might reconsider taking the teaching position when it's ready, Mrs. Edwards. Maybe by spring." Willow glanced at Travis, uncertain how to respond. They hadn't discussed how long she would stay, though neither had mentioned her leaving either. "That's a decision for another day," Travis said smoothly. "Winter's coming soon and travel won't be easy with a newborn." After the sheriff departed, an awkward silence fell between them. Willow finally broke it. "I should probably start making plans," she said, her voice not quite steady. "I don't want to impose on your hospitality indefinitely." Travis turned to face her fully, his expression serious. "Willow, you're not imposing having you here." He paused, seeming to search for the right words. "It's made this place feel like a home for the first time." Something warm unfurled in Willow's chest at his words, a feeling she hadn't experienced since James's death. "It's felt that way for me too," she admitted. October brought the first snow, dusting the mountains and turning the landscape into a wonderland of white. It also brought Willow's labor, beginning in the quiet hours before dawn. Travis rode like the devil was chasing him to fetch Doc Wilson, returning just as things were intensifying. The doctor took charge, sending Travis to boil water and prepare clean linens, tasks that kept him busy while Willow struggled through the increasingly painful contractions. After hours of labor, as the short winter day was fading into twilight, Willow's daughter was born tiny but perfect, with a shock of dark hair and lungs that announced her arrival to the world with impressive vigor. "She's strong like her mother," Doc Wilson declared as he placed the swaddled infant in Willow's arms. Travis, who had been pacing the porch during the final stages, was allowed in once both mother and child were cleaned up and resting comfortably. Willow would never forget the look on his face when he first saw her daughter, a mixture of awe, tenderness, and something deeper that she wasn't ready to name. "She's beautiful," he whispered, one rough finger gently touching the baby's tiny hand. "Would you like to hold her?" Willow asked. The expression of terror that crossed Travis's face was almost comical. "I don't know how," he admitted. "I'll show you." With careful instruction, Travis soon found himself cradling the newborn, his large hands surprisingly gentle. The baby stared up at him with unfocused dark eyes, her tiny fingers wrapping around his thumb. "What will you name her?" he asked, his voice hushed. Willow had been considering names for months, but in that moment, seeing her daughter in Travis's arms, she knew. "Hope," she said. "Her name is Hope." The winter months passed in a cocoon of domesticity that neither Willow nor Travis had experienced before. The baby thrived, growing stronger each day. Travis proved to be an eager, if somewhat anxious assistant in caring for her, learning to change diapers and prepare bottles of goat's milk for the times when Willow needed rest. Christmas came, bringing with it a quiet celebration that meant more to both of them than any elaborate festivities from their pasts. Travis surprised Willow with a hand-carved cradle and a small silver locket for Hope. Willow gave him a new journal, its leather cover embossed with his initials, and a knitted scarf she had worked on during late nights while the baby slept. As they sat by the fire that night, Hope sleeping peacefully in her new cradle, Travis cleared his throat nervously. "I've been thinking," he began, "about what happens when spring comes." Willow felt a flutter of anxiety. This was the conversation they'd been avoiding for months. "The school will be rebuilt by then," she said carefully. "The sheriff said they still want me to teach." Travis nodded, his fingers tracing the embossed letters on his journal. "It would be a good position for you, stable, respectable." "Yes," Willow agreed, though the thought of leaving the ranch, of leaving Travis, filled her with a sadness she hadn't anticipated. "But there's another option," Travis continued, his eyes fixed on the fire. "You could stay here, permanently." Willow's heart skipped a beat. "As your housekeeper," Travis finally looked up, his blue eyes reflecting both fear and hope. "As my wife, if you'd be willing." The silence that followed was filled with the crackling of the fire and the soft breathing of the baby. Willow studied Travis's face, this man who had saved her life, who had opened his home to her, who had grown to love her child as if she were his own. "I know it's not what you planned," Travis said when she didn't immediately respond. "And I know I'm not James. But these past months have been the happiest of my life, Willow. I love you, both of you." His voice broke slightly on the last words. Willow reached across the space between them, taking his hand in hers. "I wasn't expecting to find love again," she said softly. "I thought that part of my life was over. but you've shown me that the heart can heal, can grow, can make room for new love without forgetting the old. She moved to sit beside him, still holding his hand. I love you too, Travis. And yes, I would be honored to be your wife. The kiss they shared was gentle, full of promise and the understanding of two people who had both known loss and found unexpected happiness in each other. They were married in April, with the mountains still capped with snow but the valley blooming with wildflowers. The ceremony was small, just the preacher, Doc Wilson, Sheriff Mills, and a few of Travis's rancher neighbors as witnesses. Hope, now nearly 6 months old and sitting up on her own, wore a dress that Willow had sewn from one of her own. As Travis slipped a simple gold band onto Willow's finger, he repeated the words he had whispered to her in that burning hotel. We're walking out together, now and always. Life wasn't always easy in the years that followed. The ranch had good years and bad, depending on the weather and the market for horses. Willow eventually did teach, but in a small school they built on their own land, where the children of neighboring ranches came to learn alongside Hope and later, her 2 younger brothers. Travis never lost the nightmares that sometimes woke him in the night, remnants of his years on the frontier. Willow had her own dark days, especially around the anniversary of James's death. But they faced these challenges together, drawing strength from each other and from the family they had built. On their 10th anniversary, Travis surprised Willow with a trip back to Clearwater, now a proper town with a train station, a brick schoolhouse, and a 2-story hotel where the old one had burned down. They stood together on the spot where they had first met, where fire had nearly claimed their lives. You ever wonder what would have happened if there hadn't been a bank robbery that day? Willow asked, her hand tucked in the crook of Travis's arm. If the town hadn't burned? Travis considered this, his face more lined now but his blue eyes still bright. I'd like to think we would have found each other anyway, maybe not as quickly but eventually. Willow smiled, thinking of their life together, the struggles and triumphs, the joys and sorrows, the deep, abiding love that had grown between them. I think you're right, she said. Some things are just meant to be. As they walked back toward the hotel where their children waited, Travis's arm strong around her waist, Willow reflected on how a day that had begun in terror had set her on the path to the greatest happiness she had ever known. From the ashes of that fire, they had built a life together, one step at a time, walking side by side, just as Travis had promised.